Hello, viewers. This is Nargis Zahra from I-95 Washington with our new program, which is Old Theatre with New Players. We are starting this program because we have felt a need to discuss few things in the changing world order. The world order at the moment is drastically changing, especially in the post COVID 19 world. The post COVID 19 world is a word which has taken us by surprise. Our political structures, our social fabrics, and our bureaucratic structures, and our governmental structures. No structure established was actually ready to have this shattering kind of experience at all the levels, starting from psychological level to the social, economic, regional, global, and technological level. Obviously, just like any other watershed event in history, the world order would come out with some things which could be said like, okay, fine, COVID 19 was a blessing in disguise. Or we can say after some changes that this was something better that we got out of the COVID 19. But at the moment, we are standing at a point where everything has to be revised, where everything has to be rethought about. The way of life is different, the way of dealing and the exchanging, the market, and everything. World order is important to understand if we need to understand the changes of our lives, if we want a predictable kind of future plans in our lives at any level, be that professional or personal, at any tier of our life, we need to understand the world order and the distribution of power in that world order. Because politics is not only for the politicians to understand, politics is something which is also for the citizens to understand, and understand in the real form, not only what is happening to you, but what is going to happen, what can happen to you as a citizen, and above all, um, what is the capacity of the government you are living with, or the state machinery which is like monitoring or governing your lifestyle? What is their capacity, what is their thinking process, and what is the context of their policy making? These are the things that we need to understand in crisp and clear and categorical manner. So, word order is something which has always been so relevant not only to the citizens but to the major or minor power players in the world. When the Second World War ended in 1945, the word major powers came up with an institutional structure of the world, and there was a new international economic order in place in a time span of few years. There was a democratic model, and then the Cold War started right with the ending of Second World War. So in that Cold War, there was a capitalist power and there was a communist power, and the rest of the decolonized, the new states of the world were sovereign at the platform of United Nations and General Assembly, but they were in need of the favors of P5 at the platform of United Nations Security Council. With that power structure, they were to deal with IMF, World Trade Organization later, and then they had to deal with World Bank. So they were in need, the new states were in need of aids and the grants, and they were in need to get in contact with these institutions. And these institutions were mainly working for the states where the form of government was democratic, or the states which stood with the capitalist bloc of the world. So, fast forward, the Cold War ended with a decade long war in Afghanistan. So the Cold War ended and the new states emerged on the map of the world. But what happened that Islamic radicalism also emerged with the end of the Cold War in form of Al Qaeda, in form of Taliban. So in 1990s, the guarantor of the democratic world and institutionalism of the world, United States of America, was dealing with, along with its allies, was dealing with Islamic radicalism and the rogue states. And there was a list issued by President Clinton and his government, the list of the rogue states. So coming to 2001, and the 9/11 happens, and the major power of the world, and the only superpower of that time, United States of America decided to go on ground with its military, and two interventions happened. One was 2001 in Afghanistan, and the other was 2003 in Iraq. It was to eradicate that radical thinking which was based on fundamentalism and religious fundamentalism. With that, we entered a new era. World had already globalized. World had already gone through technological revolutions. World had already witnessing the emerging economies and the regional economic blocs. And let me remind you that this is a word which was dealing on the basis of paper currency since 1945, because another watershed characteristic of 1945 world order was the replacement of gold standards with the paper currency, which was mainly American dollar. Mainly means for most of the nations of the world. They were dealing internationally in the trade on the basis of their currency versus the currency of United States of America. This is called the anchor currency. And then when we come to post 9/11 world, the word was changed, and the media, a kind of media which was, like opening up in the world, and the social media had entered our lives. There was nuclearization already taking place in some of those states where the governments were not stable. So, world was not only dealing with the globalized radicalism, which was based on the religious thinking, world was already dealing with the new states which were not essentially democratic. The states in the regions where most of the population of the world is concentrated. For example, South Asia, where one fourth of the world population is living, where the consumer market of all the almost all the companies, consumer companies of the world, have their businesses. But then there are the flashpoints for conflict. For example, there is Kashmir, which is still a disputed territory between India and Pakistan, and every government has it on its major agenda of security. What happened after 9/11 was that the security narratives of the relevant or involved states were to be revised according to the new realities of a new world order, in which the military intervention was revived. And what happens after that? The world is hit by a financial crisis in 2008, and the banks like Lehman Brothers and the major companies go bankrupt. And that ripple effect kept on hitting the world pretty much till 2012 or 13. So, when something happens at the major power level, the ripple effect goes to all the states who are connected, because now we cannot go back to 1945. We are already internationally connected, no matter wherever we are living in the world. So, the problem of Africa is not only problem of Africa. So goes for Middle East, so goes for South Asia or the East Asia. So if something happens in Pacific, it is more relevant to America now than it ever was. And same is the case about Indian Ocean. Same is the case about any island in east of Asia, because the traditional implications of geostrategy are revised, and the countries are now more connected in their mutual stakes. After 2008, what has happened is the climatic change. By 2014, pretty much 8%, and this is an optimistic thing, the 8% of the world species of flora and fauna has gone extinct. The consumer based market, the consumer based lifestyle, the consumerism, and that fashion of retail therapy on ground level, it has affected our climate. So 2019, we were awestruck by those fires in Amazon and the politics around those fires. And then we were sad and we were awestruck by the fires in Australia. And then the Californian fires. Okay, climatic every year, but it costs lives. It costs the material loss, which has its economic implications. So we were dealing with those things and we were looking forward to 2020. And there was this campaign by the young activists, or I would say the juvenile age activists. There was this campaign about climatic change, and the things were being discussed, and the United Nations was becoming more united for for two things mainly: any unforeseen nuclear accident or any nuclear war started by the countries like India or Pakistan or any country like Iran or North Korea. So these were the major concerns. But what happened? The 2020 starts and COVID happens. So COVID 19, regardless of the point where from it started, how did it start, and how did it, um, I would say, approached almost every corner of the world. But by March 2020, we were closing down every region market of the world. The flights got cancelled, the people were sitting home, the offices were closed, so there was no war, there was no bullet fired. Nothing was like a traditional threat. But then we came to know about few bubbles which were burst about the world order, the positive sum game, and the international cooperation, the global exchange, and everything. No state in the world was ready for a health policy based humanitarian crisis. And we had that. And we were into it, all of us, on the common grounds. No discrimination by this virus, be that a poor nation or be that a developed nation, or a rich country, no matter, regardless of the size of the middle class in a country, regardless of the number of cars on a state, on roads of a state in a country. What happened was that it did hit the way it wanted, and that was unpredicted. That was not on security agenda of any state as per my knowledge. And after that, what happened? There was mushroom growth of information and the media channels from social media. I call it the fractured kind of uh, self self-produced fractured form of, like, it's the mushroom growth of media channels, and everyone was saying something about it. Everyone was like talking about it. Everything was being discussed from the aspect of COVID. So we have entered in a new world order for the first time in written political history. This is the first major outbreak since Spanish flu. And the Spanish flu was not a pandemic, it was not global. So this time, the health sectors were not ready. The traditional security narratives went out of the window, totally irrelevant. The institutional and state cooperation at international society level was more than ever required. But what we witnessed was a kind of verbal exchange of adverse statements between the two major powers of the world now, China and United States of America. The platform was WHO, and then the world and analysts are now like thinking whether the future world order is going to be about American exceptionalism, or is it going to be about Chinese revisionism, or is it going to be a second Cold War, or which one is the bigger threat now? Is like health sector to be more important for the national security agendas, or is the climatic change going to be like more important for national security agendas? Where is the relevance? The problem is the crisis of relevance of international institutions. They had to find their relevance. World Bank, World Trade Organization, and United Nations on at 75th anniversary of United Nations, these things were discussed, that let's find our relevance to the people, to the citizens, the international global citizens. And that relevance was also a big question for all the government structures. The good governance aside, the states were not ready for it. So, what happened in the states with semi stable or unstable kind of political structures? That the governing political parties became a scapegoat for this crisis. So, the oppositions started playing. There was this. I would say this how to put it, in human kind of politics being played around COVID. No state, let's be fair about it, no state in the world was ready for COVID 19, even if it was an experiment. But no state, it was, even if it was an experiment, though no state was ready to the level of this. And then international institutions, as I said, they had to find their relevance. uh, States had to find their relevance, security narratives had to be revised, and the constitutions had to be adjusted. What happened in the world, another trend, that the countries like Uganda, El Salvador, and Russia and China, they became more centralized in their power exercising, and having emergency powers in their hands, locking down like millions of people, overall like billions of the people inside their homes. And then another thing for which the world was not ready, that was the emergency of psychological stability of the people, the mental health and illness. And we have come to know that a superpower, a nuclear superpower with second third strike capability like United States of America, was not ready for such kind of crisis as per its health sector policies. And the states had to go for, varied responses. So the COVID-19 response state to state differs in United States of America, and it's a federation, so this is how it goes. But what about other countries where there is already a centralized power structure in the governance and states are not ready? Then there were politics of aid, the aid diplomacy, then the grant diplomacy, then COVID 19 relief diplomacy. So, a whole language, the technicalities, the jargons, everything is changed in this new world order. We are living in the world, the neighbors are same, the context, the thinking, the threats, the agents of change, the actors, the factors, and the phenomena, the three things through which I look at world order every time in history, wherever I'm analyzing. Actors, factors, and phenomena are all like together, the messed up on the chessboard. But the new thing, which is the watershed event, the COVID-19 outbreak, is added, and it has revised or complicated everything. What is improved is the digital economy. What is improved is the technological exchange. What is improved is the close connectedness and exchange of knowledge of the between the scientists and the public health workers all over the world. But the bubble which is burst and which has challenged democracy, for which we are fearing revival or reemergence of nationalism and fascism, that bubble which burst is the bubble of international cooperation. The two major states did not stand with each other. They like started kind of blaming each other and criticizing the policies. So we have to look into it. Then the most important thing is now the vaccine politics. So a lot is happening, and there is this, already there was the old world order, that new international economic order, the post 2008 financial crisis world order. It was already having its shifts. The tectonic shifts were already happening in Pacific Ocean, in Indian Ocean. And but what has happened, that metamorphosis is now sped up. Its pace is faster now. There are alliances taking place. For example, the Abraham Accord, and then that military standoff of China and India, then those tensions regarding Kashmir between India and Pakistan, both nuclear states. So these things are happening, and then we have to look at it. We have to look at the international institutions. We have to look at the emerging economies, which are hit very hard. We also have to look at the politics of climatic change and so many of these things. And with such kind of interesting, ever relevant topics, we would come to you every week with one expert. So I would ask questions, And you can add questions through our email available on our website. And you can text us, you can message us on Messenger, Facebook. You can follow our social media handles. We would be showing these at end of this promo. And thank you so very much. Keep in touch to understand what is going to happen with the citizens as per the new emerging world order. God bless you.